In the early hours of October 7th, 2023, something unprecedented was about to happen in the Middle East. A security barrier that had stood for years was about to be breached in 119 different locations simultaneously. Armed groups would penetrate up to 15 miles into Israeli territory, and a music festival with 3,500 young people would become the site of one of the deadliest civilian massacres in modern history. The operation had been planned for 2 years in underground tunnels, executed with military precision, and would fundamentally change the Israeli-Palestinian conflict forever. This is the complete timeline of October 7th, 2023, the planning phase. For 24 months before October 7th, something was being prepared beneath the Gaza Strip, deep in a network of tunnels that Hamas called the Gaza Metro. Militants were planning the largest coordinated attack in the group's history. They communicated using hardwired phone lines, technology that Israeli intelligence services couldn't intercept. What makes this planning phase remarkable is how much of it happened in plain sight. Throughout 2023, Hamas released training videos showing fighters practicing border breaches. In December 2022, they posted footage of militants rehearsing hostage-taking scenarios. Another video showed fighters practicing paragliding techniques over open terrain. In September 2023, just weeks before the attack, Hamas conducted open military exercises simulating assaults on Israeli settlements. They posted videos of these drills online. Security analysts in Israel and around the world watched these videos. Most dismissed them as propaganda or psychological warfare, but the training wasn't just for show. According to documents later recovered, Hamas had obtained incredibly detailed intelligence about their targets, maps showing exact locations of military forces, layouts of border communities, positions of surveillance cameras and automated weapons systems. The level of detail suggested either a major intelligence breach or years of patient observation. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of October 7th isn't what happened that day, it's what happened in the months and weeks before. According to reports from the New York Times, Israeli officials had possession of Hamas's detailed attack plans more than a year in advance. The document described almost exactly what would eventually unfold on October 7th, a massive rocket barrage, followed by multi-pronged ground incursions using various methods of entry. It even specified targets including military bases and civilian communities. The document circulated among Israeli military and intelligence leadership. The consensus opinion was that Hamas lacked the capability to execute such an ambitious operation. 3 months before the attack, in July 2023, a member of Israel's Signals Intelligence Unit sent an urgent alert to her superiors. She had detected preparations for the assault. Her message was direct and unambiguous. "I utterly refute that the scenario is imaginary." An Israeli colonel dismissed her concerns. Egypt, which maintains intelligence networks in both Gaza and Israel, issued warnings in the days immediately before October 7th. According to Egyptian officials, they told Israel that an explosion of the situation was coming and very soon, and it would be big. Israeli officials denied receiving such specific warnings, though U.S. congressional leaders later confirmed that warnings had been transmitted. Field observations noticed increased Hamas activity. Intelligence intercepts suggested unusual preparations. Foreign allies passed along concerns. Each warning was evaluated and deemed insufficient to warrant major action. The intelligence failure of October 7th ranks among the most significant in modern military history, not because the information wasn't available, but because available information wasn't believed. Operation Al-Aqsa Flood begins. Dawn was breaking over southern Israel when Mohammed Daif's voice came over Hamas radio frequencies. "Operation Al-Aqsa Flood has begun," the military commander announced. His speech referenced what Hamas viewed as justifications for the attack: the 16-year blockade of Gaza, Israeli military operations in West Bank cities, incidents at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the expansion of Israeli settlements. He declared it was time to end what he called the last occupation on Earth. As Daif spoke, rocket launchers across Gaza roared to life. Over 4,000 projectiles launched toward Israel within 20 minutes. The targets ranged from southern cities like Beersheba to central Israel, including Tel Aviv and even Jerusalem. Explosions echoed across the region as Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system attempted to intercept the barrage. 12 people died in these initial rocket strikes, most from Bedouin communities who had less access to fortified shelters. Air raid sirens wailed across nearly half of Israel's territory. Millions of people ran for bomb shelters, safe rooms, or any available cover. But the rockets weren't the main attack. They were the distraction. While Israelis sheltered from the rocket fire, the real assault was beginning at the Gaza border fence. Approximately 6,000 people crossed from Gaza into Israeli territory. Hamas's elite Nukba forces made up about 3,800 of these fighters, with another 2,200 militants from other groups and armed civilians joining the incursion. The breach happened at 119 different locations simultaneously. Some sections of fence were simply driven through by bulldozers. Others were blown apart with explosives. Gunmen poured through on motorcycles and in pickup trucks laden with weapons. Along the coast, speedboats carried fighters to beach landings. And in perhaps the most stunning tactical development, dozens of powered paragliders flew over the border fence, carrying militants directly into Israeli territory. The Israeli Defense Forces, caught completely unprepared, struggled to comprehend what was happening. Units were scattered across the country. The first helicopters wouldn't arrive for another hour, and they were coming from bases in northern Israel. Local security forces in the border communities were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. The festival massacre. 3,500 young people had gathered in an open field near Kibbutz Raim for what was supposed to be a celebration. The Supernova Sukkot gathering was a trance music festival marking the end of the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. The festival grounds were about 5 kilometers from the Gaza border, but that had never been a concern before. At 6:30 a.m., as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, festival goers noticed streaks across the sky. Some thought it might be some kind of pyrotechnic display. Within minutes, they realized these were rockets. The music stopped. Organizers began urging people to leave. By 7 a.m., sirens were wailing and the evacuation had turned chaotic. Thousands of people rushed toward their cars or looked for any available transportation away from the area. The parking area became gridlocked almost immediately. That's when the militants arrived. Dressed in military-style fatigues and armed with assault rifles, they approached on motorcycles and in pickup trucks. Some descended directly into the festival area using powered paragliders. They began firing indiscriminately into the crowd. What followed was a systematic massacre that lasted for hours. Militants moved through the panicked crowd, shooting people as they ran. Those who made it to their vehicles found themselves trapped in massive traffic jams on the surrounding roads. Gunmen walked between the stationary cars, firing into windows at point-blank range. Others tried to hide in the sparse vegetation of the desert landscape. They crouched behind bushes, lay flat in irrigation ditches, or sought shelter in the few structures nearby. Militants conducted methodical searches, hunting down anyone they found. Bomb shelters that should have provided safety became death traps when militants threw grenades inside. The massacre at the Nova Festival would claim 364 lives. It became the deadliest terror attack in Israel's history. Dozens more were wounded. At least 40 people were taken hostage, dragged away to waiting vehicles bound for Gaza. Communities under siege. 21 communities came under simultaneous attack. These were civilian agricultural communities, small towns and kibbutzim near the Gaza border. Be'eri, with just over 1,000 residents, was hit hard. 70 Hamas fighters entered around 7 a.m. By the next day, 132 residents were dead. Another 32 were taken hostage. Kfar Aza, 3 kilometers from the border, experienced similar assault. 70 militants killed 80 people and captured 19. Nir Az, with 421 residents, lost 47 people. 76 were taken hostage, including entire families. The pattern repeated across communities. Nahal Az lost 70 people. Netiv HaSara lost 17. Sderot, a city of 35,000, lost 53. In Sderot, militants destroyed the police station's computer systems, disabling emergency response coordination for the region. Ofakim, 30 kilometers from Gaza, marked the furthest point reached. Militants targeted older neighborhoods without individual bomb shelters. 33 people died before security forces organized a response. Israeli military installations came under attack. The Raim military base, headquarters for the Gaza division, was breached around 10 a.m. 22 people died, several soldiers were captured. The Erez crossing fell under militant control early. 9 security personnel died. The loss allowed additional fighters from Gaza to enter. Nahal Oz lookout base was set ablaze. 53 soldiers died, 10 were captured. The Israeli response. Attack helicopters launched an hour after the assault began, coming from northern Israel. Pilots faced impossible situations, distinguishing between militants, Israeli forces, and civilians. Crews engaged hundreds of targets in the first 4 hours. But in the confusion, some Israeli positions came under friendly fire. Ground units took time to mobilize. Communities waited hours for help. Fighting in Be'eri and Kfar Aza continued into the next day. The most controversial aspect involves the Hannibal Directive, which prioritizes prevented hostage-taking over protecting potential hostages. According to Israeli newspaper investigations, the directive was applied multiple times. At 7:18 a.m., when someone was kidnapped at Erez Crossing, Hannibal at Erez was ordered. Throughout the day, forces fired on vehicles heading to Gaza, knowing they might contain hostages. According to a UN investigation, up to 14 Israeli civilians died from Israeli fire while being transported. At 2 p.m., forces created a killing zone around the border fence, the hostage crisis. The hostage-taking was systematic, not opportunistic. Militants had clear instructions to capture as many people as possible. Families were taken from homes. Young people pulled from hiding places. Soldiers bound and loaded into vehicles. Videos showed captives transported through Gaza. Some footage showed celebrating crowds. Other videos depicted injured hostages being dragged. By day's end, 251 people were hostages. Ages ranged from 10 months to over 80. Among them were soldiers, civilians, foreign workers, and entire families. The death toll. Israeli emergency services confronted overwhelming devastation. The Abu Kabir Forensic Institute received hundreds of bodies in various states. Many burned beyond recognition. Others bore signs of close-range execution. Forensic teams worked around the clock. DNA analysis became necessary. Archaeologists were enlisted to search burned buildings for remains. The final verified count was 1,195 dead. This included 815 civilians with 36 children, 71 foreign nationals, and 379 security forces. An additional 247 were taken hostage. The reactions. Hamas defended the operation as legitimate resistance. Senior official Ghazi Hamad said, "We will do this again and again." Hamas denied killing children and claimed they didn't target civilians. In January 2024, Hamas released a report accepting some faults, but continued denying intentional civilian targeting. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said Palestinians had the right to defend themselves. In October, he declared Hamas's actions didn't represent Palestinians. Israel declared war on Hamas immediately. A massive bombing campaign and ground invasion of Gaza followed. 44 nations condemned the attacks as terrorism. Arab and Muslim countries blamed Israeli occupation policies. The attack triggered international criminal court investigations. The U.S. filed charges against Hamas commanders. Outro. October 7, 2023 marked the deadliest day in Israeli history. The coordinated assault shattered regional security assumptions and triggered a devastating war that continues today. In the months that followed, the conflict has resulted in tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths in Gaza, widespread destruction of infrastructure, and a humanitarian crisis affecting millions of civilians. International courts and human rights organizations have launched investigations into alleged violations of international law by both Hamas and Israeli forces. The full truth of what happened on October 7th, including questions about intelligence failures and response protocols, continues to unfold.